Hello everyone and welcome to today's Joomla webinar sponsored by CloudAccess.net. Today we are going to talk about Akeeba Backup. Akeeba Backup is one of the most popular Joomla components available, and their goal at Akeeba is to produce the highest quality extensions for the Joomla content management system, always honoring the core values of the community and the freedom of choice and the access to the software source code. Akeeba goes even further than that by providing the most thorough documentation you've seen in a Joomla extension and making it available free of charge. During this webinar, hosted by CloudAccess.net, you are going to learn how to install Akeeba in Joomla. You're going to learn how to create a backup of a Joomla site and download the backup to a computer. You'll learn how to restore a backup using CloudAccess.net, our hosting control panel, and you'll also learn how to restore a backup using Kickstart. You'll also learn about other Akeeba products, and do stick around for a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Now, I am recording this presentation today, and I will post this to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/cloudaccess. I'm going to talk just a little bit more about our company. We are the official provider of the demo trial of Joomla. You can launch unlimited free trials of Joomla through the Cloud Access platform. Each of those demo trial sites is active for 30 days, and you can use our support system. You can submit support tickets, use live chat, or call us directly to get help developing your Joomla site. My name is Bernie, and I'll be your host and moderator today, but your presenter is Nicholas from Akeeba Backup. And Nicholas is a Joomla expert. He's been around for a while working with Joomla, and he is a ex-mechanical engineer turned web developer, and he's the guy behind Akeeba, really, and the admin tools and a bunch of other extensions. He's got a ton of experience. He really loves Joomla. He travels the world going to Joomla events and speaking, and he's very knowledgeable. So Nicholas will be available at the end with me to answer questions, but now I'm going to pass the presentation over to Nicholas directly. Nicholas, how are you?
Hello, Bernie. I'm fine, and thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, we hosted another webinar a while back and had a couple audio issues, so Nicholas and I are doing this a second time to get this information to everybody. I'm going to share my screen with Nicholas, or I'm going to pass the screen to Nicholas now. And
I believe that now you see my desktop, right?
Yeah, we do.
All right. Okay, hello everybody. I'm Nicholas Dionysopoulos. Just call me Nicholas because nobody gets my last name anyway. I am the lead developer of Akeeba Backup. Akeeba Backup is pretty much my brainchild. It's been around since the end of 2006, originally known under a different name. It was called Joomla back then. And from pretty much January 2010, it is known as Akeeba Backup. In this presentation, I'm going to show you how to install Akeeba Backup, configure it, take a backup of your website, and then I'm going to prove that it really does work by destroying the site and restoring it directly from the backup that we have taken. So first things first, let me log in to my Joomla website here on my local computer. This is a Joomla 3.0 website, but Akeeba Backup, its current version does work on Joomla 2.5 and 3.0 and the upcoming 3.1. If you have a Joomla 1.5, 1.6 or 1.7 site, you will have to use an older version of Akeeba Backup. So let me first log in here. Now, let's download Akeeba Backup. In order to do that, we're going to our site, which is www.akeebabackup.com, and we go here, which says download Akeeba Backup. It takes a while because I'm also doing the presentation. There we are. The latest version is always presented on top. Right now, it's 3.7.4. If you want an older version, you can scroll further down. For example, 3.4.3 is the latest version, which is available for Joomla 1.5. So let's go back to the top and download the latest version. Okay, it's this file, Akeeba Backup Core. Core is the free version. If you become a subscriber, you will have access to another item here, which is Akeeba Backup Professional. That's let's say a souped-up version of Akeeba Backup with some extra features. So now I'm going to download Akeeba Backup Core. It's a simple zip file. It will go to my download folder. Go back to my Joomla website, extensions, extension manager, choose the file which I downloaded. Let me go to the downloads. There we have it. Akeeba 3.7.4 core zip, and click on upload and install. It's pretty much what you do with every Joomla component out there. So when you see this page which says that everything is installed, you're good to go. So let's go ahead and configure our backup. We can go to Components, Akeeba Backup, and the very first time that we do that, after we install Akeeba Backup or after we upgrade Akeeba Backup, we see this page. I would recommend leaving the Run the Configuration Wizard checkbox checked, because this will allow Akeeba Backup to automatically configure itself with the optimal settings for your web server. This means that you don't have to go through all the configuration options yourself. You will only see this checkbox once, upgrade all profiles to ANSI. You don't really need to know what it is, just check it. And then you have the very important three checkboxes. The first one says that you have read, understood, and accepted the license of the software, which is the GNU GPL version 3. It's just a newer version of the same license that Joomla uses, and pretty much says that this is free and open source software. The other one says that you understand that support for the software is only provided to subscribers. If you're not a subscriber, you only have access, you only have view access to the ticket system, which means that you can read public tickets there, and you also have access to our very thorough documentation. Actually, 99% of any problem that you may have backing up or restoring your website can be solved by just reading the documentation. And the final and very important thing that you need to acknowledge is that an untested backup is as good as no backup at all. And this is very important. Some people believe that they can set up a backup, never test it, and when their site goes down, they will have to figure out if it works, how it works. Well, that point is actually a little late. So I would recommend every time you do any important change on your site, test your backups. Make sure that everything works, and make sure that you're familiar with the restoration process. Otherwise, your backup is as good as having no backup at all. Okay. Apply these preferences. And now Akeeba Backup automatically runs its configuration wizard. As you can see, it will go through several possible settings to find out which one of them is the best for your website. The goal of the configuration wizard is to make the backup as fast as possible without causing any problems with your host. It is actually the longest part of the configuration. All right, now we're ready. You can either click directly on the Backup Now button to take a backup, or you can go back to the control panel by clicking the control panel button. And this is what I'm going to do because I also want to show you what is the main page of Akeeba Backup. This is normally what you get by going to Components, Akeeba Backup. Out of all these options, you should know that Backup Now is the most important button because it is what allows you to take a backup. Manage backups is the second most important thing that you will need, because it allows you to see all the backups that you have taken, even the backups whose files you have already removed from your site. All other buttons here are explained very thoroughly in the documentation, and you will only rarely need them. So let's begin a backup by clicking on Backup Now. For each backup, you can type in a short description. By default, it says backup taken on plus the date and time of the backup. This is what you're going to see in the Manage Backups page of the component. So I'm going to type here, this is my first backup. In case you need to add more information for your own record, enter them in the backup comment. You can enter as much information as you want. This information will also be available when you are restoring your website. There's nothing that I want to type in here, so I'm just clicking on Backup Now. You see now the page where the backup progress is shown. It tells you that it goes through several steps, initializing the process, putting the installer inside the archive, backing up the database, backing up the files, and finalizing the backup. So if you are on a speedy server like those provided by CloudAccess.net, even on their demo accounts, you will see that the backup of a basic Joomla site completes in about 20 seconds. So let's go now to the Manage Backups page. And here you see our first backup. We see the description that we typed in, the time the backup started, the date the backup started, the time it took to complete the backup, just 17 seconds, the status. If it's okay, it means that the backup is complete and the files are on the server. If it says failed, then an error occurred and you will have to go through the documentation to find out how to solve it. The size of the backup, it's almost 8 megabytes, and from here we can manage and download the backup archive. Now, normally by clicking this button which says Part 00, we can download the backup file to our computer. If you have a very small backup like this one, which is just 8 megabytes, you can do that. I would say that if you have a backup archive which is more than 25 megabytes, don't. In fact, when you try to click this button, you receive a message which tells you exactly why I recommend against using this method. Downloading the files through your browser can result under certain circumstances to corrupt or partial downloads and subsequent review. In other words, there are some browsers, some servers, which when you try to download a large backup file with them, they will pretty much destroy the downloaded file and you will not be able to restore it. So remember that right now I know what I'm doing, so I'm going to click OK. If you want to do it correctly, please use an FTP program like FileZilla and download it from there. In fact, I do have FileZilla open, so let me cancel this and show you how to download it yourself using FTP. FileZilla is already logged in to my site's root, so I have to find the backup archive, which is inside Administrator, Components, Akeeba Backup. This is the default location of the backup archives. If you want, you can change it. This is my backup archive. It always has this file extension, .jpa. If you have a huge site, which is over 2 gigabytes, you will see more files with the same name and extensions of .j01, .j02, and so on. So now, in order to download it, I have to first go to the transfer menu and go here, transfer type, and select binary. This is very important. If you do that, there's a good chance that the download will be corrupt. And now I can just drag it to my downloads directory, and there we have it. Now we have a backup. So, website, I can restore it from scratch, even if the website stops existing suddenly. So, I'm going to open my site's root, select all the files, and send them to trash. So right now I have destroyed the site. Let me go back to my browser and try to refresh the page. As you can see, the URL was not found on the server. This is because I removed all files from the server. But this is no problem. We can very easily restore our website, and here's how. We will need to somehow extract the backup archive on our web server, and there is an installation program inside the backup archive. So how do we extract the backup archive on our server? And this is another thing we need to download from akeebabackup.com. So back to akeebabackup.com, download Akeeba Kickstart. Akeeba Kickstart is a small PHP application which has one purpose in life: extract backup archives. The latest version. It will just take a while. All right. And now that we have downloaded it, let's open the download folder. And here it is. It's this zip file, Kickstart core 3.6.0.zip. Obviously, you cannot run a zip file. We will need to extract it first. As you can see, there are dozens of files here. These are all those INI files. They are translations. Apparently, I don't need a translation file because I'm speaking English. And the only thing that I will need to upload is this kickstart.php file. So let me also open my site's root again and move kickstart.php in my site's root. Well, there you have it. Now, I will also need to put my site's backup archive inside the same directory. So let me open again my downloads folder, take the backup archive, and move it to the site's root. All right, now we have everything we want to restore our site. Let's go back to our browser. Our site, demo.local.web. Let's remove everything from the URL and type kickstart.php. And this runs the Kickstart web application. Now, if we have multiple archive files, we can select the one we want to restore from this drop-down. Apparently, since I only have uploaded one backup archive, it's my only selection, and it's already pre-selected. The rest of the options here are explained in the documentation. Basically, the most important option is the extraction method. Since I have a very fine-tuned local hosting, I can write directly to files. If you are restoring to CloudAccess.net, you can also use this method, the directly write to files. But if you are on a zip shared host, you will probably need to use the use FTP option. It is a little more complicated, but as I said, it's very well documented. So if you just follow all the documentation steps, you will have no problem. All right, so we can now start the extraction by clicking the big green button and wait a while. All right, now Kickstart has finished extracting our backup archive, so we can start the restoration. So let's run the installer. As you see, a new tab opened in our browser. You will see that the URL now says demo.local.web/installation/index.php. This installation directory, which contains the restoration script, was put inside the backup archive at backup time. And now we are inside the restoration script. This is the first check to see if the site we're restoring to, if the server we're restoring to is compatible with Joomla. As you can see, everything is green here. The recommended settings, it doesn't matter if something is orange. It just means that one of those settings is not the ideal for Joomla, but Joomla will still work. If you scroll down this page, you can see some information about the backup, where you took the backup from and when, the Akeeba Backup version that took the backup, the PHP version of the server that took the backup, and next to it in the site information, you can see the Joomla version, which is the Joomla version of the site that we are restoring to, and the PHP version installed on our server. Basically, if this PHP version doesn't match with this PHP version here, then you will probably have some small problem. If they match, at least if the first two digits, the major and minor version match, there is a 99% chance that you will have absolutely no problem restoring your site. Clicking this button, which says you read me HTML, you can review any backup comments that you had entered at backup time. Obviously, I hadn't entered anything, so there's nothing for me to see here. All right. Once you're sure that your server settings are all good to go, you can click on the next button. And this is where we can restore our database. The first thing that you have to select is the database type. By default, it's MySQL, but there is also another option which is called MySQL I with a trailing I and marked as preferred. I would recommend always trying to use MySQL I with the trailing I. In fact, if you're using CloudAccess.net servers, I'd say that you need to do that because it will make your site a little faster. As you can see over here, we have all the database connection information, the database server hostname, username, password, and database name. The restoration script remembers the settings of the site that we backed up from. Obviously, if you're restoring to a different site, you will need to edit them because they will be, the restoration script will have noticed that you're restoring to a different site and will blank them out. So since I'm restoring to the same site, obviously I can leave them as they are right now. And you can also fine-tune what will happen during the restoration. When we have existing tables, should we delete them, drop, or should we copy them under a different name, which is called backup? Unless you're restoring on top of an existing site, the drop method is just fine. Then you have the database table name prefix. Normally it remembers the prefix that you used in your original site. If you have reasons to change that, you can do it right here. And the rest of the checkboxes are just some advanced options. If you're unsure, I'd say check them all. They can't do any harm, but they can be helpful. If you know what you're doing, like me, just leave them as they are and click on next. Now the database is restored. That was it. We can go to the next, or we can reconfigure our site if we want. We can choose a different site name, email address, email sender name, etc. Or we can even set up a different password for our super administrator. The only thing that I would recommend doing is see this checkbox override TMP and log paths, check it. Don't ask why, just do it. And now we can click on next, and our restoration is now pretty much complete. We just need to make sure that the installation scripts directory, the installation directory, is removed. Otherwise, Joomla, instead of displaying your site, will display the restoration script again. In order to do that, we close this tab. We're back to Kickstart, and we click on the big cleanup, sorry, on the big green cleanup button. And we can now go to the site's front end. Okay, the site is restored just fine. It was this very basic site. Let's go to the administrator. Yep. Right. The site is restored. Now, a few thoughts here. Even though Akeeba Backup has this word backup in the name, it's much more than backup. It can be used to either backup and restore your site on the same server, or you can use it to move your site from one server to the other. In order to do that, you just backup your site, move the backup archive to the new server, upload Kickstart there, run Kickstart, enter the new database information, and your site is transferred. In case you're transferring your site from another host to CloudAccess.net, then you don't have to do it yourself. You can provide the backup archive to the kind people at CloudAccess.net, and they will do the restoration for you. And I have to say that according to my clients, they are very, very efficient. So if you want to change hosts and your new host is CloudAccess.net, you just need to install Akeeba Backup on your site, take a backup, give it to CloudAccess.net, and there you have it. So that was my presentation material, and now I'm going to give the presentation back to Bernie so that you can ask questions. He will relay them back to me, and I will answer them.
All right. Hey, Nicholas, great job. And you'll be happy to know that there were a few tiny little delays in the audio, but overall probably 99% better than the first time we did this.
I think the delays must have happened when I was downloading things.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but I think, again, just it went really well. Now, we do have a couple questions showing up, and folks, you can use your GoToMeeting. There's a slide-out question area. Send me a question, and I've been kind of reading those as you've sent them in already, and I can ask those to Nicholas. And there was a good question from Paul that I liked, and I noticed...
Before we start, I'm switching the screen back to you, okay?
Okay, go for it.
All right.
All right. So just a reminder, folks, too, that you can access a recording of this webinar. You should see my screen now, and you can access a recording of this later today at youtube.com/cloudaccess. If you scroll down this page, you'll see our playlists, and we have a special webinars playlist down here. We'll add this later today. And you can also visit our site anytime to register for another free webinar. Just advertise a few of our free upcoming webinars. Let's go to the Joomla webinar tab under training. Of course, we offer free daily webinars on learning the basics of Joomla, but our upcoming special webinars include webinars about Joomla SEO. This one's on Friday, how to improve your search engine optimization. We have a CMigrator webinar if you are interested in learning how to migrate from WordPress to Joomla. Other upgrading from 2.5 to 3.0 webinars, and iJoomla, an ad agency webinar, and a John Social webinar. But I want to get back to Nicholas's questions because there are a few good ones. And there are a lot of questions showing up, and I'm at Nicholas's site now. And remember, if we don't get to your question today, you can always go to the documents at AkeebaBackup.com. They do have a very impressive set of documentation. And you can also go to support. If you have a subscription, come to support if your question isn't answered in the documentation. But Paul had a good question, and I noticed this as you were running the installer, Nicholas, that you need the latest version of PHP. Paul has PHP 5.2, and I noticed...
Yes. PHP 5.2 has actually been dead for over 2 years. It became end of life on sometime January 2011. Well, I kept on supporting it for 2 years after it was end of life, but at some point it was impossible to keep on supporting it. If I continue doing that, newer versions of PHP would be incompatible with Akeeba Backup, and of course this wasn't an option. So yeah, if you're using Akeeba Backup 3.7, you will need PHP 5.3. If you don't have PHP 5.3, there's a very good chance that you will get hacked anyway, so you have to upgrade to PHP 5.3.
Okay. There you go, Paul. Good advice from Nicholas. And Richard had posted a question, and I'm not sure if we got an answer. So Richard's question, should you take a backup with a JPA extension or a zip extension? When would you need the zip backup?
Okay, it's actually all about preferences. JPA is a little faster because it doesn't have to calculate checksums of every file that is being backed up. And this minimizes the possibility that the backup will hold and probably fail. But if you have a pretty much small website, or let's say small to medium website, you don't mind the backup being a little larger and a little slower, then zip will work just fine. I know that many people who use Windows prefer the zip format because it's much easier for them to examine its backup archive and extract just a couple of files that they need to replace on a live site. So basically it's just your preference.
Okay. Now, JP had asked about that site you were working on specifically, and you were restoring that on your local host, isn't that right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. And this is, I think, just kind of review from Richard again. When you were using FTP, you put the Kickstart file and the Akeeba backup in the HTTP docs directory, isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay, so
it's named a little differently in my local machine, but yeah, if you have a live site, yes, that's where you have to put those files.
All right. And now you did mention our platform, and folks, we do have a backup system that we've created here, but we didn't create it from scratch. At CloudAccess.net, if you're in your client area, we do have a backup system, and I'm going to log in here very quickly just to show you. We actually worked with Nicholas on this to create this using Akeeba Backup. So I'm logging into our client area, and if you're new to our network, this is the client area where you'll manage and maintain your relationship with CloudAccess.net. I'm going to go to one of my sites, and I'm going to go to my options and go to Manage Backups. And this is built upon Akeeba Backup. I've created a few backups for this site already. Simply click on the Create Backup button, and your backup will be created. It's that simple. And you can also drag and drop a restore of your backup using our features here. And Brooks posted a question, what are the advantages of Akeeba Backup versus the backup in the CloudAccess.net control panel? Well, they're virtually the same. They're virtually the same.
There is a small difference. The engine version in Cloud Access is a little older, and it has the slightly older restoration script, which was called Akeeba Backup Installer instead of the newer one, which is called ANSI. The thing is that I'm continuously adding new features to Akeeba Backup. This happens, well, we have a pretty much major release every 2 months. So yeah, there are a lot of features being added. And of course, if you choose Akeeba Backup and go with a professional version, you can have many more features than what is possible with CloudAccess.net, like, for example, sending your backups to Dropbox or Box.net or iDrive sync. This is a new feature that will be released very shortly. And basically, there are, I don't know, about 10 different cloud services where you can store your backups, which is always a very good idea, just in case something happens to your site or to your account. You no longer have access to anything on your site. You still have a backup, and as I showed, if you have a backup, you can restore it on any web server out there. Moreover, another advantage to having a Akeeba Backup instead of just the backup feature of the CloudAccess.net Cloud Panel is the extra options that are already available even in the free version of Akeeba Backup, like being able to exclude certain files, folders, or tables from your backup set. Let's say if you have K2 is storing thumbnails and different sizes of your images inside the directory. It doesn't make sense to always backing them up because they tend to get very big, and it's something that can be regenerated if the need arises. So in those cases, you can just use Akeeba Backup's files and directories exclusion feature, and there you have it. You can have a smaller and more efficient backup. But if you're just interested in having a quick backup to store somewhere locally so that no matter what you do to your site, you can restore it to its prior state, then either solution works just fine.
Very good. Good answer, actually. Learned quite a bit there. So thank you for the question, Brooks. Two of our attendees today asked about testing a restore of a backup, Frank and Robert. And, you know, we always ask people to just launch a new demo site and test it that way. But how do you recommend testing?
Well, if you're already on CloudAccess.net, then launching a demo site and restoring the site there is obviously the easiest solution because you have pretty much a free account with the same setup, the same server setup as your main site's account. You can't go wrong that way. If you're not on CloudAccess.net, then there are different ways. One way is to create a subdomain and restore it there. Don't try using a subdirectory. There are pitfalls. Or you could have a second account on the same hosting provider, or you could, of course, use a local server like XAMPP, MAMP, Send Server C, any of those. The goal there should be that at least the PHP version between the original site server and where you're restoring it matches. If it's a different PHP version, then you will probably have quite a few issues there arising from PHP version differences. If you're asking me how I test my backups, I automatically restore them every day on a local server. I know that I have set up my local server pretty much the same way my host has set up their live site.
Okay. You know, which version of PHP do you recommend at this point? I have a few questions about that.
I would say at least PHP 5.3.1. That's the minimum recommendation. Ideally, you should be using the latest published version of PHP 5.3 or 5.4 with a small note there. PHP 5.4 has a couple of differences from PHP 5.3. If you have very old extensions which you haven't updated for a while and for which there is no update and you haven't found an alternative yet, stick with PHP 5.3. If everything is up to date, then I'd say go with PHP 5.4. There is one more reason why you should go with PHP 5.4. PHP 5.4 is 7 times faster than PHP 5.2. 7 times. Okay? I had the site that I backed up in 17 seconds. It was on PHP 5.4. I've tried backing up the same site on the same machine with PHP 5.2. It takes 2.5 minutes. So you can see that there is a clear advantage performance-wise for PHP 5.4. And remember that one major aspect of your site ranking is the page load speed. Having a site which generates its HTML part 7 times faster, well, it's a big deal in search engine optimization, if not anything else.
Okay, thank you. Just responding to a different question here. Chaz has a question. Can you back up in both Joomla and Akeeba? And I'm not sure if I'm confused or about the question or if Chaz is confused, but Akeeba is a component that you can add to your Joomla site. So it's a third party. It's not part of core Joomla. But you can add it to your Joomla site to create a backup of Joomla.
I believe that I understand what the confusion is. All third-party extensions which you can install in Joomla, be it a component, a module, a plugin, a template, they all live inside the Joomla site. Akeeba Backup, which is itself a Joomla extension, also lives inside the Joomla site. And it will back up everything inside your Joomla site and all the database tables inside the database that Joomla is using. So Akeeba Backup doesn't only back up core Joomla, it backups your entire Joomla-based website, including all of its extensions.
All right. Let's see, just a few more questions today. Frank posted a question about our backup component. Yes, Frank, we do back up your site every single day at CloudAccess.net. And, you know, if you're restoring on our site, it doesn't really matter if it's a Cloud Access backup or an Akeeba backup. You can restore both. As Nicholas explained earlier, there are benefits. There are more benefits to having the Akeeba backup as opposed to just our backup system. But ours, you know, for all intents and purposes, works pretty well. Chris has an issue, actually, Nicholas, with the backup. He says, I have problems with the backup file not showing up in FTP before, but it shows in administrator backup files from site. Is it going to another directory?
Most likely, yes. In this case, you just have to go to the configuration page, see what is the backup output directory. This is where the backup file goes.
Okay. And one more question from Cheryl. If using Cloud Access to backup, how do we restore the site to a demo site? Well, virtually the same way, the same process that Nicholas recommended. I want to show you one of our webinars. I'm going to go to our YouTube channel. Here's Cheryl. This is youtube.com/cloudaccess. Again, scroll down to our special webinars playlist here. And this upgrading from Joomla 2.5 to 3.0, this webinar contains those steps. So we're using Akeeba to restore on the CloudAccess.net platform. Okay, so I'm going to send you a link to this video directly. And Richard says, hi Bernie, just a small question to you to think about creating a webinar just dealing with the user manager. Yeah, it's a great idea. We've done some ACL stuff, a very popular topic. Nothing is more popular than Akeeba, though. I hear Akeeba so often. And Nicholas, you did a great job today. I think that's all of our questions. Just want to remind everybody that come through and go to the documents at akeebabackup.com if you have additional questions, or come to support if you have a subscription. Nicholas, a lot of people are saying thank you, and
Thank you very much.
it is a pleasure to do this with you as well. I'd really like to do another one with you at some point, but we'll talk about that privately.
Of course.
All right. Thanks for attending, everybody. Good luck creating your Akeeba backups and working with Joomla, the best content management system on earth. We'll see everyone real soon.